Flipping it up and out. Bogut! A recent block by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is the basketball series, a great week of playoff action. A few teams obviously going through to the conference finals. Looking forward to that, bro. What do you have for us?
Bogues, another shit show day of the NBA. Fucking Ja Morant, huh? Fucking great way to open up.
Let's not blow our load early.
I'm not.
I mean,
for the first time in my life, I'm
horrendous.
not blowing my load early. I'm just telling you that it's a great thing to wake up to in the morning, let me tell you.
Yeah, we'll get into that. That's mind-boggling, especially in the middle of what has been a pretty good playoffs for a lot of people that have followed it. But maybe a few small little tweaks that need to be made, which we'll discuss later. But we'll get into the playoffs that have been. We'll chat the series that have been, then we'll chat the teams that have exited and where to for them, and then we'll do a quick preview of the next round following that. But let's start with the Lakers Warriors. I think it was a beatdown, really, in my opinion. The Warriors never really looked in the Warriors' flow for most of that series. They had a game or two where they got out to double digits and won, but it was just clunky. It really was, and it just didn't fit. I'll tell you what, when Draymond Green comes out the way he did in Game 5, that's what they needed from him. I think most of those games, there were times he just wasn't aggressive offensively, and what he did in Game 5 showed that, when he comes out with that kind of mentality of attacking and taking those 2-3 footers, getting on the rim, getting the free throw line, they're tough to stop. But then, the Lakers made their adjustments in Game 6, and then we didn't have much of that again. But to me, I got to give credit to the Lakers as well, that it seems like they're getting better during the playoffs, bro. Like they're getting noticeably better in different things, and it's a testament to their coaching staff, and it's a testament to they've got a lot of veteran heads on that team that know how to play the game. But I've noticed that they genuinely feel like they're surging in the right direction. So dangerous team. I mean, we didn't think they'd be here. I didn't. I don't think you did, and most people didn't think they'd go this far. Their defense has been very, very good. A lot of people talk about the free throw disparity. Look, bad mix of a series. The Warriors historically are not a high free throw shooting team. They shoot a lot of threes, and the Lakers attack the paint a lot and get a friendly whistle. So you put those two together, the disparity was huge in this series again, just like it was for the regular season. Did that change the series? Maybe a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, the Warriors shot themselves in the foot and shot themselves out of a lot of games. But what were your thoughts on this one? Did you think it would go this way? Did you think it would go longer? And what would you have changed if you were the Warriors?
Bogues, it just goes along what happened the whole season for them, for Golden State. They just never really put anything together. Now, when they did put it together, it was pretty cool to watch. I never really messed with their shot selection. I think early on in the whole dynasty deal, you're like, oh, wow, they take all these messed up shots. But let's be honest. I mean, they lived by that, that creed of just they had the shot makers and players that could, make shots at a really, really high clip. I just think that the tough shots that they took, first of all, like you said, credit to the Lakers. I think LeBron James has really made a great transformation in this playoffs, getting off the ball, getting in the post a lot more, letting other people handle the ball. So now he could just he doesn't have to have all the energy of being Bugs Bunny and playing every position, first base, second base, third base, home plate. He could just, he could post up. He could attack on pick and roll when he needed to, but he bullied them inside, used his passing, playmaking. Reeves was great. Davis was great. They got a lot of, great play by Austin Reeves. Russell came up, different parts of the series. He was decent. Lonnie Walker came up big, once or twice during the series. So I think they played really well. They guarded well. They really put the clamps on Golden State. Well, Golden State, in my opinion, Bogues, look, their shot selection is what it is. They've made a dynasty out of those threes and tough shots out of the offense that they run. I agree with you. When Draymond was in attack mode, he was tough to stop. I think what happened was, including him in Game 4 and 5, even in a win, the 5 turnovers in Game 4 and Game 5 were tough. Like the turnovers as a team just playing around with the ball when they needed baskets and just sort of plays that can go their way. I think they really need to center in on making easier plays as far as the passing. Just sometimes I think that they cost them a lot with just throwing the ball anywhere and turning the ball over at a high clip. Jordan Poole really didn't have much of a series. They couldn't really rely on him. He was unplayable at points of the series. But I think their turnovers and sort of just, I don't want to say non-caring, but just where they threw the ball, it just was anywhere, and it really cost them. And the Lakers just look like, as this snowball effect happens, where I didn't think they were even going to make the play-in, forget about the conference final. As they get deeper in this, I think they just got comfortable playing their style. They made that lineup change. It took Vanderbilt out for a game or two, I think at least a game. I think they put Schroeder in his place. And that was big. I love Vanderbilt, but offensively, they just were hurting a lot with them in the lineup. And I think getting an extra ball handler in Schroeder and a playmaker really helped them. And I think for Golden State, they sometimes, again, I don't want to question great players sometimes because they just know how to make plays. Like sometimes they didn't take advantage of switching defenses. Steph took a couple of tough shots late in game where he got favorable matchups, but instead of movement or try to attack, settle in for shots. But again, look, he does what he does. I mean, he's the best shooter in NBA history. He earns the right to take whatever shot he feels as though his team needs. But I just think the turnovers, in my opinion, Bogues. And then, I don't want to say guys don't show up, especially great players and they have really bad games, especially in playoffs. I'll just say they didn't produce. And I think that, Clay didn't produce in that last game. They really needed him. Steph was just okay. But I think that, Clay's rough shooting night, especially in that last game, really, really hurt them.
Oh, he was 34% for the series.
Yeah. What else did you see, Bogues?
Well, looking at the stats now, get this. So the Warriors, it was 112 to 109 for the series in favor of the Lakers. The Warriors won the rebound battle by 4 a game. They won the assist battle by 4 a game. Steals 7 to 5, blocks 5 to 3.5, so relatively even there. Turnovers, as you mentioned, they had 3.5 more a game. Field goal percentage 44 to 47, 3-point percentage 35 each, and free throw percentage 75-78. So turnovers were the big one, but yeah, the free throw disparity. I just looked it up as we were chatting. This was the 10th all-time biggest free throw disparity in a playoff series in NBA history, bro. I didn't know that. So it was a bit of an issue, but like I said, it's the opposite styles of play. Yeah. But the Lakers were good for 13.3 more free throws a game, which led to 80 more free throws over the course of the series. So that made a huge difference. When you look at those stats I just read out previously, everything was pretty even, man. Mm-hmm. And I think those free throws, 13 extra a game, when the series score was 112 to 109 when you add up all the games together, those free throws were very, very big. So it did make a difference, but the Lakers did a good job of attacking.
Yes.
Look, there was some questionable calls along the way, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I think the Warriors, I think they really missed Andre, even at his age. I really do think they missed Andre because he's a cooler head. He has a great feel for the game offensively. Hey, let's go away maybe from Clay a little bit. Let's go down this way. He's not feeling it tonight. Hey, let's get it down here. Let's maybe get a post touch and just try to get something cheap. And he's a smart defender, which could have just been another big body. I felt like once Wiggins busted his rib, even before that, LeBron was getting whatever he wanted in the paint for that in that last game when they went on that big run in Game 6. LeBron was just laying the ball up, and the dangers of the Warriors' small ball is you don't really have a rim protector, so that hurt them. But that, like you said, you live and die by that style of play, and arguably the net is way positive with this style of play than negative. We're talking about a loss for the Warriors, but 4 championships in a decade. I mean, most people 10 years ago would have said 1 championship in a decade for the Warriors would be fantastic before it all started, right? So you can't now you're being greedy. A lot of fans are disappointed and this and that. You got to take it with a grain of salt. This is one of the greatest runs of all time in NBA history. Take it. You've been part of it, but it does look like it's winding down. We'll get into the Lakers a bit later, but the question remains now, where to for the Warriors? There's a lot going on in Warrior world. The Paul Draymond situation definitely has not gotten any better. We saw videos of Poole ignoring Draymond numerous times for high fives and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I assume it's not good. There's rumblings of the older group not meshing with the younger group. There's rumblings of Kuminga. This was an interesting one, Pro. Steve benched Kuminga. From what I understand, Kuminga thinks or thought he should be playing much more minutes than he is, and didn't want to be a glorified role player. Thought it's the get in my bag mentality of a young guy. And look, it is what it is. He's a young guy, and he probably thinks I can do more than I'm showing here. Blah blah blah. I don't think he knows how to play off the ball that well, which is a problem. But I think they could have used in this series, Pro. And I think Steve was, probably adamant on teaching him a life lesson. You're not going to play in this series if you're going to bitch and complain about minutes. But you put him at the 4 next to Draymond, with Draymond at the 5 in those small ball lineups. Now you've got a lob threat, and they missed that for most of the game. Draymond catches in those half rolls. What I mean is Steph and Clay come off a pick and roll. The Lakers were half trapping or half blitzing. You throw it to Draymond at the top of the free throw line. Now he can attack the basket, or he can usually swing it out. Historically, Draymond would attack, and you had to kind of come down on a JaVale McGee or someone like myself or one of these bigger guys that can throw down a lob dunk. You had to come back and at least get a body, which then what? Opened up three-point shooting. Well, the Lakers were just like, you know what? Looney's not an athletic guy. He's a great player and a workhorse, but he's not an above-the-rim finisher. He's a below-the-rim finisher. We're going to hedge that you're going to throw it to him and we can recover in time and get to shooters. So I think Kuminga could have been useful. Does it change the series? Probably not, but I think having an athlete that can get their head above the rim, I think hurt the Warriors. But anyway, there's a factor there. I wouldn't be surprised if he wants out of there, which is crazy. You're playing behind Steph and Clay and these guys. You play a role until it's your time. Bob Myers has not signed a extension. Apparently, it's been rumored he's been offered one numerous times and still hasn't agreed. So I don't know if it's a low ball. I don't know if he wants to be there. Who knows? I'm not going to read between the lines. But from what I understand, Pro, if Myers leaves, Kerr leaves. That's my understanding of the lay of the land there. So there's that crossroad with the franchise. There's Draymond Green has a player option for mid-20s, I think, high 20 million for next season. The question is, does he opt in? Does he get that on the free market? Does he take a sweetheart deal from the Warriors, meaning he's going to forego that 26, 27 million and say, all right, I'll do a 3 for 50, gives you a bit of a discount. Does he do that? Jordan Poole stunk it up this playoffs for the most part. Do they move him? Klay Thompson's extension is coming up. Is he going to ask for the max, considering his body of work previously, which we generally don't see in the NBA, but he's going to definitely be asking, hey, you've paid Jordan Poole, you've paid Draymond Green, you're going to pay me. So this is the first time they're in a really big crossroad. I mean, they had the issues a couple of years ago when they didn't make the playoffs, but that was mainly inflicted upon it by injuries and just bad luck, right? This is a big time for this franchise for the next 5-10 year plan. And do they have one? If they extend and keep this group together, their salary cap is going to be insanely high. Right. Insanely high. It's going to be an all-time high for salary caps. And they just came out of a second-round exit that was not too complimentary of the way the Warriors have played. So your question as an owner, as a GM, is like, do we invest, $300-400 million into a team that peaked the second round, right? But we haven't really had to have this conversation about the Warriors. We had it subtly the year they had a bad year, but like I said, injury inflicted. Steph played minimal games that year. Clay got hurt. There was all those factors. This team was relatively healthy this season for the most part, and the peak was a second round bomb out, Pro.
Yeah, Bogues. I think if you're Golden State, I don't think you're going to be investing all that money into this group. This group is sort of gone where they got to go now. In my opinion, you still have some moves you can make. What I would be doing tomorrow is, I'm going to wait, but I'm going to seek out probably moving Draymond, to be honest. I think that's sort of run its course. I love his tenacity, but I think it's time to move on. You're not going to get a lot of value back. I think the three guys you can look to move. I think you keep Steph and Clay. I think you have to treat this as a situation like most championship teams. Look, their young players are not very good. You're not going to say, okay, we get all these players coming up the pike. Kuminga is average, maybe a little above average. He's made a jump in his shooting. Jordan Poole to me is Kelly Oubre on
Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah,
Jordan Clarkson
exactly.
type early in his career.
Clarkson and Oubre, a Nick Young type of player, a one-trick pony that's not really a thinker but just a scorer, and he's very streaky. But he's got a very, very big contract. So I don't think anybody's really giving you much for Jordan Poole. That's a lot of money to take on. It's not like it's a big contract for 2 years where a team might give you, an expiring contract and you got to throw in a pick, to take them off your hands. It's a lot of money. So what I would probably do, Bogues, I would do one of two things or both. First of all, I would seek out the Lakers to see if they would sign and trade Vanderbilt, probably Hachimura. And I don't even know if you can do this, so I'm just spitballing here. I would probably do Green, maybe even Kuminga if I had to. And I would do it for Vanderbilt, Hachimura, and I would throw in the young player Max Christie in exchange for Draymond. Look, Vanderbilt's not as good as Draymond, but he's like 23 years old. He's an elite defender. Not to the level Draymond is because the experience and toughness. He doesn't give you offensively what Draymond does with the passing, but he's pretty good. And he gives you a younger player that you could probably do for a better contract than Draymond's as far as the money. And then you've got two other players that Max Christie is a young player that could be an all-star. I think he's very, very good. He hasn't really played a lot because they have a lot of guards. And I like Hachimura, and he's an improving player. And then you got to ask yourself, all right, where do we want to go here? Because you could probably go to the Mavericks and see what you want to do with Kyrie. Could you play Kyrie and Steph in the same lineup? I don't think so. But I'm just saying, Wiggins is the only other guy that can give you some value. But I don't know what you can get back. But you got to look at the guys like Bradley Beal or a Kyrie or somebody else to that, like that veteran that they're trying to move. You're not going to do it for Ayton, because you got Looney, who's very good and a great contract. But I think Draymond you can move, and I think Wiggins you can move. I love Wiggins. I think he played great. For where he was in Minnesota to where he is now is unbelievable. And that was an unbelievable development job by Golden State. Could be your culture. I don't know what it was, but it really set him apart in, being more streamlined in his game, really just sort of locked into being a really good role player. And he's a winning player for them. But that's what I would do, Bogues. I don't know about the Kyrie thing. That's just spitballing. But I would definitely look to the Lakers. Look, Draymond wants to play with LeBron. Let's be honest. He would love to do that. If not, staying in Golden State. Vanderbilt's a really good player. You can get two other good players with him. And I think the Lakers would think about it. Because, look, at times, Vanderbilt was really good. At times, for them in the playoffs, they couldn't really play him. Draymond gives you more offense than Vanderbilt. Yes, he's older, but he gives you toughness. He gives you a guy that can win in the playoffs. He still has really good value for a couple of years for certain types of teams. And I think the Lakers are that type because look, I would keep Looney. He's a great vet. He's a guy that can, that really knows the system. You can rely on him. He's a pro every night. Steph and Clay are your cornerstones. But I think re-signing Green to a long-term deal when, you got to do something else. You got to make a move. And I think Wiggins and Green are the only guys you can move from. I don't think Bogues, and I'd like your feedback, can you get anything for Poole with that contract? I mean, as of now, before I sign off on this thing, he's owed next year. Now, his deal didn't even kick in yet. 31 next year. 33.7 in the year after that, 36.2, and then 38.7 in 26-27. I don't think anybody is taking that contract, to be honest with you. And
that's the deal that's probably going to hurt him in being able to keep the group together, right? Like does Clay now leave? Because there's not, I don't know if they give Clay the max. I don't. Based on injury history and age, they're probably not going to do it. They probably want a team-friendly deal. My thing is, does Clay take a team-friendly deal? Does he say, hey, I brought 4 championships here. I was as big part as anyone to this championship run. I want to be compensated. He might feel pissed off the fact that, and arguably the Warriors didn't need to pay Jordan Poole at that point, I don't think, right? Like they could have waited. And they were scared and, might lose him on the free market, but I don't think they would have. But yeah, that's a tough contract. We know we've discussed numerous times, every contract's movable. That one's tough. And I don't think the Warriors have a bunch of picks coming. I don't know what their pick situation is, but if you move that, you're going to be probably taking a shit sandwich of a contract back from someone else, i.e. like Rudy Gobert or something like that, with some picks that you're going to lose. Like that's the way you move it. It's going to be a like for like shitty contract. You're not going to get a good value contract and a great player for that. You're going to have to eat some concrete on that one. So I agree. I mean, it's a big crossroad. I think it's an exciting, as someone who just follows the NBA, to see what they're going to do. Does Myers stay? Does Kerr stay? Does everything just become a honeymoon again and everything's back to normal? I don't know. They got a lot of things to do. All right, Denver Phoenix. This was a series of the opposites, in my opinion. Just the way, style of play and all that kind of stuff. It ends up finishing in the favor of the Denver Nuggets. They go and absolutely pummel the Phoenix Suns. I think the final scoreline was very complimentary. It was 125-100. It was way worse than that numerous times throughout the game. No one loses home court the first 4 games, and then Denver steal it in game 6. But it was 2 different styles of play, Pro, and I picked Denver in this one 4-3 based on, I think, Denver being together another year. There's a lot of growth there. They've gotten better defensively. I like what they've done. Jamal Murray's healthy. Porter's relatively healthy. But it was a ball movement versus ISO series. Simple as that. The Suns are very ISO dependent. Durant finishes with 29, 10, and 5. Not great clips though. Not great shooting clips at times throughout that series. Devin Booker went Kobe mode for 2 or 3 of those games. It was very, very impressive individually. Devin Booker finishes the series averaging 30 points a night with 8 assists and 5 rebounds. Shot 55% from the 3 for the series. Doesn't shoot a lot of them actually, Pro. He only shoots 5 a game. You'd think he shoot more than that. 56% from the field and 87% from the free throw line. Durant's clips were down 45% from the field, 22% from 3, Pro. So not great from 3, but still relatively respectable numbers for KD there. Aiden basically AWOL for this series with 10 and 8. So much so that our guy Jock Landale got a lot of minutes, more than he played in the regular season, averaged 18 minutes a game in this series, and one of the games he barely played. But then you go, everything just seemed like a grind for Phoenix to get. As Kobe as Booker went, it was all a grind. It's all dribble down, throw it to one of those guys, ISO, Denver's going to double, and then they get a swing. And I felt like the games that they played really well was when they somewhat not relied, but they were open to kicking it to a Landry Shamet in the corner for a 3 or a Terrence Ross and I think they needed to do a little bit more of that. It was too stagnant, too ISO based, and it's a hard way to play. And then you go down the other end and then, Denver have one of the best passing big men of all time. The ball's moving side to side. They're all touching the ball. They're all feeling it. And psychologically, for people listening, when you play a team sport, especially basketball, when everyone feels a ball, they feel the leather on the ball every other possession, you feel involved mentally. You feel good, and then all of a sudden you have an open jump shot or an open 3, you make it. You feel good about yourself. When you're on the Phoenix Suns and you are a Landry Shamet or a Jock Landale and you haven't touched the ball for 15 straight trips, and then all of a sudden they double, KD or Booker and it goes swing to you in the corner, Landry, you better make this. It's a huge shot for us. Very hard shot to make. And I experienced that under the Mark Jackson era with the Warriors. That was his style of play. He was very isolation-based. It was more along the lines of whoever made the last shot, we're going to you till the well runs dry, then we're going to go to the next person. And what teams used to do to us back then was they knew they let Steph, somewhat get going in the first 3 quarters, and then they said, hey, we're going to, in the 4th, let's get it out of his hands and make one of these other guys beat us because we feel they haven't been involved. They haven't touched the ball. And it was exactly that. All of a sudden, it's a tough shot. So that was kind of what I thought with the series. Jokic just phenomenal. I mean, his numbers just bonkers. 35 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists a night, 60% from the field, 45% from 3. 85% from the free throw line. Jamal Murray came to play this series as well, 25, 6 and 5. He still has a tendency to disappear a little bit through stretches, but he was as aggressive as he should have been. Michael Porter Jr., not a great series, but okay, 12 points a night. But they're so balanced, Denver, and that's what I like about them. They've got so many weapons, and they're going to be a tough beat for the Lakers. But this series, I think, should have went a little bit closer than it did. The way the Phoenix Suns bowed out again under Monty Williams this season, another closeout game blowout, not good. But other than that, Aiden does not play in Game 6, bro, so copped a lot of shit, I think, early on in the series. Whether he's hurt or not, there's question marks around that, but I think they missed him, because you might not say his play was super influential, but what it does is it throws the whole rotation out. We saw that. Now, Jock Landale's playing more minutes than he's played all season. He's got tired legs towards the end of a game. Bismack comes, it just changes the whole flow of their rotations, and I think that really did hurt him in that game. It was just all kind of strange. But to me, it came down to ball movement versus ISO, and that's what cost the Suns a series, pro.
Yeah, Bogues, look, I think that you're right. When the ball moves, in this league, you're really hard to stop. And it gets everybody in a maximum mental state offensively as far as, I'm going to touch the ball a little bit. Not to the point where you're going to touch it all the time, but you got to touch it enough. And I think that, look, that's what the way Phoenix plays. They had to trade a lot of assets to get Durant in town. And I would do that move a million times. You got to bring in a player like that. But you sort of cost yourself a lot of depth doing it. So you're highly, you got to really rely on him and Booker. Now, look, Chris Paul getting hurt. It was interesting because Paul gets hurt, but yet the ball moves a little better without him in the game. And you got to ask yourself, maybe are they a little bit better without him? I don't know, because of the experience as far as the basketball IQ, being able to make plays. You got to go to Cameron Payne, and then Booker's got to handle the ball more, when he's not in the game. But yeah, you're heavily relying on isolation scoring between Booker and Durant. And if it works, when those guys are clicking, it's really good. The problem is in the playoffs, they didn't really have a lot of nights where they were both clicking. Booker went straight Kobe for most of the series, except that last game. He was phenomenal. And Durant was good in his own way. I think Durant, when he was struggling, but he had that really good game when he went to the line a bunch of times. I think when you're a scorer and things aren't happening for you, look, no one has to tell Kevin Durant how to play or how to score, but I think when you're not making shots and it's just not working for you, you got to find other ways. You got to get to the free throw line. You got to get easy looks just to get yourself going. I remember, talking to Kobe a lot, texting him at halftime or emailing him at halftime. And, when he had a really rough first half, I'm like, look, dude, you got to put your head down, get to the free throw line, get some transition scores, get some things that are just going to get you rolling again. But getting to the line is really important. And I think that when he gets to the line, especially, those Oklahoma City days where he's getting there 12, 14 times a night, that's what you have to do, especially when you're struggling. And Ayton, look, Ayton should, like I said before, he should lock himself in a room and watch David Robinson his first couple of years in the league, when he was just impacting the game by running, getting the ball in deep post-ups, scoring, being aggressive defensively. Not much of a rim protector, but he could still help, by just being in the thick of things. And I think he really hurt his value this playoffs about disappearing. And I think that, your value in this league is to your team and to other teams. And I think that there's a lot of talk about maybe Kyrie getting dealt there. Well, I don't know. If I'm Dallas and I'm thinking about signing, trading Kyrie, and I have to get Ayton back fresh off a big contract where, he's going to have to get paid, 32 next year, 34, and then 35. And this is basically make or break for that organization. And, are you going to bring in a guy like that who disappears? On the other end of things, let's not just talk about Phoenix's woes, but, Denver was awesome. Jokic's ball movement, just to play, how he played, how those other role players played around him. Murray had good nights. Porter played with some energy at times, and it was really tough to stop. Gordon played well, and they were just they're just a fun team to watch because the ball moves. They shot the ball pretty well. They just got out there. Bench players of like Bruce Brown was really fun to watch. Even Braun, Christian Braun played well, and Jeff Green, and like just watching those guys compete. But KCP made plays, and it was just good. It was good to watch. But I agree with you, ball moving versus isolation. Although, like I said, that team is built for isolation in Phoenix with those two guys. It just is. And they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do if they're going to keep Ayton, and how you're going to upgrade your role players off the bench to get you more shot making, more scoring, some defense off the bench as well. But it was tough to watch because you wanted to see Phoenix make the finals. I think a lot of teams expected them to have a chance to make the finals, and then to bow out the way they did. But then again, they had the injury of CP and a little unlucky with that. And then, Booker's off night, the last night. And then, Durant really, even though statistically he was all right, not really being the Durant that we're used to during the regular season. It just, it was unfortunate, but that's just sort of the way of it. I will give him this, and we'll talk about this, especially later in the show. At least Durant showed up to his media and actually took the beating. He didn't take the beating. He just sort of answered the questions about why he didn't play well, why they lost. He didn't hide from it. That's class. That's what a great player should do. I think all great players are a little bit different how they play, but how they approach media when things don't go their way and have to answer those questions. Guys like Jordan did it every night. Jordan, Larry Bird, those guys, they answered media good or bad or the ugly. They didn't throw their team under the bus. They took it. They took the highs and they took the lows. All these players today, they love taking the accolades when they play well, when those media guys blow them. But now, when it's time to answer it when you don't play well, you got a bunch of these players skipping media. And I think that's pretty bad. It's pretty immature, and it's it just shows entitlement and the wrong things that we're teaching young players how to hide from adversity. Everybody likes tweeting out that they deal with adversity, blah, 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 all that Jeff Gordon bullshit, John Gordon bullshit, Tony Robbins bullshit. But when it's really time to face it, when things don't go your way and you hide from it and just, I'm not talking to the media. Booker was that guy. The Memphis guys were those guys. And I think that you have to take it, the good and the bad with this stuff. And I do applaud Kevin Durant for that. He didn't just blow off the media and hide from it. He took it like a man, and I do have respect for that.
Where to for Phoenix? They're in some interesting times. I mean, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker contracted through to 25-26 for Durant and 26-27. They're not going anywhere. DeAndre had an elephant in the room. Does he get moved? There's rumblings they don't want him around. Chris Paul, partial guarantee for next season. I believe the partial guarantee date is end of June. So well done with his agent on that one, because it puts a lot of pressure on Phoenix. And it's fully non-guaranteed for next season, I believe. The season after, I believe. So they're still on the hook for $15 million if they don't pick it up. I think what we're going to see is they'll either pick it up knowing they have a trade organized, which will be days after he picks it up. They pick it up and then move him, or they just move him on. I can't see him coming back on that contract. I think it'd be a crazy play for Phoenix to make. He's owed $30 million or $60 million over the next 2 seasons. But role players, they got to go out and get some role players. Jock Landale's a free agent. We're talking somewhere between $5 and $8-9 million, somewhere around there. Pro, that's what we think. He should get from someone around the league. I think he's shown enough the ability to run the floor, and he does have a three ball. Three ball deserted him a little bit this season. He's going to get in the gym and work on that. But he was a good, energetic backup 4 or 5 for them at times, and I think teams are probably sniffing around that mid-level area for him. But they need to get some role players. They just need to get some guys in that can come and contribute and complement the stars. I thought Shamet playing because of the Chris Paul injury was good. I didn't realize his contract was as high as this. He's owed 10, 11, and 11.5 over the next 3 years. But I think he can be a helpful guy because he's a feet-set three-point shooter. They probably need another defender to put in with these guys. That's probably one thing they were missing, which was Torrey Craig. pro, but disappeared in this series. Didn't really play a lot, which was interesting. They went away from him, obviously not providing a lot of spacing offensively, but then you go to the other end, they probably could have used him. But Phoenix with an interesting choice. What do you do with CP3?
I'm probably going to look to deal CP for sure. Just move him on. The thing about it, it's not easy. It's not an easy deal to move on to. It's a $30 million, even though it's non-guaranteed. But you're saying that by the end of June they have to either pick that up, or he's a free agent.
I think it's end of June,
or
yeah.
it's fully guaranteed or not fully.
No, he gets the partial. So I think he's partially guaranteed no matter what they do on that date. He gets 15 of it. If they don't pick it up, he gets 15 and walk away, I believe. If they pick it up, he's then contracted for that season for the full 30. But then obviously the following season's non-guaranteed as well. So they're on the hook for, if they opt in, they're on the hook for the full, another 15 on top of what they're already paying. So they might say, all right, we'll bring him back for that extra 15 and then not bring him back the following season. But will Chris Paul want to come back for that? They might move him on. But I mean, just it hurts their cap. I mean, $50 million for Durant, 50 for Booker, Aiden's on 34, Chris Paul will be on 30, and Shamet's in the double digits. That's basically your salary cap. So now you have to go out and get some mid-level type talent to put around Durant and Booker with what money, right? That's the hard thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough decision for Phoenix. I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean, if Dallas can give you Kyrie and you want to live with that, I think you might have to at least explore it. And look, Kyrie, he's obviously a powder keg as far as like what we're talking about with him, right? And the issues that he's had, just sort of, word salad stuff and social media stuff. But can you trust Ayton? And a lot of people are saying no. I think you're going to have to move on from him, and you have to look at, guys like Bradley Beal if he wants to move. Do you move him to Portland for Dame Lillard? I don't think Portland does that. I don't think they're going to want to take on that money. So you got to just sort of go up and down and see, well, can I get a good player for Ayton? Or you deal with it. I think you're sort of – it's tough because your whole salary cap is basically Booker, Durant, and Ayton, and it's really hard to really upgrade what you're doing. You're going to have taxpayers mid-level, which isn't that much, and – it's not really going to be easy to add players. Look, this is what you do. I mean, you move a lot of your assets to get a great player in Kevin Durant. And I would have done that move a million times. And the problem with Chris Paul is the injury stuff going late in the season, and you're flipping a coin to see if he's going to be healthy or not. And look, I really like Chris Paul in your lineup. He gives you that IQ, that veteran leadership. He's tough, but the problem is late in the year, you could rest him all you want, but deep in the playoffs, most likely he's probably going to get banged up a little bit, if not for long stretches. So that's going to be tough. But I think you got to move him, but you're not going to get anything for him. So it's basically going to be, a throw-in. He'd be a throw-in for the Kyrie deal with him and Ayton to Dallas if that's going to be on the table. You're looking at other places as well. I just don't know where you're going to get that value back. If you're dealing, for Ayton, you only have one or two deals that you could really make. And a lot of people just don't trust him. So they're in a tough deal, but the first thing they're going to have to figure out is who the head coach is going to be. And going forward, like who's going to be the leader of the team. If Doc Rivers gets moved, is it going to be Doc? Our guy, Nick Nurse, he's going to have to get that NN hat in Phoenix colors. I don't know if that's going to help his brand or not. I don't know. I don't know where you go with your coach, Budenholzer. I don't know. So I think you got to figure some things out. You don't really have a lot of wiggle room what you can do, even if you opt in or opt out to Chris Paul. I just don't know, where you go from there for them. I think the only really move they have. Look, you're going to keep Booker. You're going to keep Durant. I think the only really move you have is to move Ayton. And for Lawndale, to me, I'll probably give him 4 years, 32, maybe the fourth year partially guaranteed. But as he saw in the playoffs, what he did was he's an energy guy. He's a guy you can rely on. He sets screens. He's smart. He can catch. His three ball will get better in time. It really wasn't consistent most of the year, but I think his toughness really shows to being a very valuable second unit big that could really help you. And you know who else I liked? I liked Torrey Craig early in the playoffs. I thought he did, a good job making shots and being tough and being smart. Damian Lee at some points, like he's a good player. TJ Warren, really didn't give. He was up and down. Terrence Ross up and down, but Biyombo. The only thing about Biyombo with them going forward is like he's a good screen setter. He's strong. He's tough. He plays hard, but he can't really catch. He's not an offensive threat. He's a decent lob threat. Not all right shot blocker. He's got length, but I think you got to figure out what you're going to do either going forward with Londale or Biyombo coming off the bench. You got to pick one and get rid of the other guy, in my opinion. But yeah, not a lot of wiggle room there for Phoenix, Bogues.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think CP just doesn't fit with Devin and KD being ISO guys. You can probably get a cheaper third option that can shoot the ball better from three. I'd rather play Landry at times, to be honest, because he's a better three-point shooter. So I just don't know how that all fits. But yeah, Monty Williams gone. Ty Lue linked to that one, trying to lure him away from the Clippers, which is always interesting. But anyway, New Jersey, what do we have? Miami and New Jersey in here, and New York. Okay, so credit to Miami again. They continue to get it done with a shorthanded roster. Outcoached and outplayed, in my opinion. I think your guy Tibbs got outcoached in this series in different aspects. I felt like they should have been in numerous games that they just weren't. They just couldn't get it rolling. Jimmy, clamped Brunson the first couple of games when they got their first few wins. Brunson turned it on a little bit later in the series and finished with some decent numbers. But I think New York really should have been. They really should have been in this series. Should have been, at least a closer 6-gamer than it was, potentially 7. But you got to give credit to Miami, man. They continue to figure it out. They've got some winners on that team, some guys that grind it out. Jimmy Butler, 24, 7, and 6 for the series. Brunson, 31, 5, and 6. But yeah, a clunky series. We never thought it was going to be pretty. But yeah, the Heat just continue to find a way to progress. They're going to go on to the next round. I'm going to probably say the same thing about them in the preview versus Boston. But credit to them. This is a massive overachieving season for them, considering the obstacles they've had to face with injuries and whatnot. So a decent series, albeit a little bit clunky. I mean, Randall, I needed more from him. The Knicks, I mean, he struggled throughout the series to score the ball, 41% from the field, 28% from 3, 4 turnovers a game for 4 assists, which is horrendous. RJ Barrett turned it on a little bit, got his numbers later on in the series, but when they needed him early, he wasn't there. Josh Hart was pretty good, but probably didn't have the same effect he had in the first round. And not much else there other than that. I mean, Grimes ends up playing, 30 minutes a night just to guard Jimmy. He battled for the most part, but they were searching for that second, third, fourth option. Robinson was okay at times defensively, but offensively didn't really give him a whole lot. And just a clunky series. Credit to Miami. I mean, they were tough. Bam Adebayo finished the series off well, didn't start it off well. Strus, their third leading scorer, played very, very well with 14 tonight. Kyle Lowry had his fingerprints on a few of those games as well with, his defense and flopping and charges and all that kind of stuff. But they got a tough guard unit. You look at Lowry, Martin, and Vincent. That's 3 tough defensive-minded guards. And Jimmy Butler, you got 4 guys that can really guard Adebayo down back. Kevin Love had a few decent games as well. So credit to Miami, Pro, but no one would have saw this coming, and we definitely didn't. I don't think people are giving enough credit to what the Miami Heat have done this season.
Yeah, Bogues, you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. 7 players, undrafted on their roster in the playoffs. That's an amazing feat. And, be able to compete with a roster like that without Tyler Hero, without Oladipo, and being able to go, with guys like Strus and Martin and Vincent, on top of course, Butler and Adebayo. Look, those guys played hard. They competed. They played well. They just were tough and they hung in there. Duncan Robinson, that everybody sort of threw off the boat. Guy just steps up and plays and, gets ready and plays major minutes in the playoffs, in my opinion, compared to what he was used to and was pretty effective. My hat's off to those guys. Yeah, New York, a little bit, you expected a little bit more from them. Randall disappeared for the most part. RJ Barrett just, just didn't give you enough. And look, Brunson was great. He was phenomenal throughout the whole playoffs. He put that team on his back, and he stepped up to the challenge. It's his first playoffs, series being the number one option. And look, the guy just put up unbelievable numbers and willed their team to win and really, competed to the end. And my hat's off to him. The question is, what are you going to do going forward with this team? And, I'm sure we'll talk about that now, but that's tough.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, Brunson's locked into a really, really good deal, really, now. When you look at it, 27, 26 next season, 24 and 24. It's a declining deal as it goes year on year, but you got Randall now, 25 next season, 27, it goes to 29, the third year, 25, 26. Fournier's elephant in the room, doesn't play any minutes. I thought he could have helped in this series the way he shoots the ball, doesn't get in. Thibs just went completely. Thibs has a habit of getting completely off guys. We saw it with, who was the guy that ended up in Portland? What was his name? They traded away.
Oh, the kid from Duke, Cam Reddish.
That's right, Cam Reddish. Yeah, just lost it. But yeah, same thing. Just didn't want to play him under any circumstances. He could have helped them somewhat. I mean, they needed shooting around Randall at times, and especially when they had the lineups with Randall and Robinson out there. Not a lot of 3-point shooting at the 4 and 5. You got to put a guard out there that can shoot it a little bit better, and that was Grimes' minutes essentially guarding Jimmy, and Fournier's on the hook for $18 million and then a $19 million option this season after. So they have a team option, which they most likely obviously won't pick up. And then you got Robinson making 15, 14, and 12. So they're pretty locked in, but they are 19th this season in salaries. So they got a little bit of room. Barrett's number heavily jumps next season, 23, 25, 27, 29. There's talks that they want to bring back Josh Hart, $15 to $20 million range. But other than that, they can't really do a lot, bro. I don't know what else they can do. There's talks of Karl Anthony Towns wanting to somehow navigate his way to New York. But other than that, you're not hearing a whole lot of what New York can do. But they, Stephen A. Smith ran on RJ Barrett and Randall. There was some truth to it to an extent. I think Randall definitely needs to get better.
What did he say, Bogues?
Oh, he just annihilated Randall. He said he's done with Randall. They need to trade him ASAP. Said that, if his offense isn't flowing, his body language is awful. And to an extent, Stephen A. obviously goes the aggressive route to get people talking. He's got a point. Like Julius's game has always been dictated by whether he's making shots or not. Whereas I think he can be much more useful than that at times. You can still buy in defensively. You can draw a charge. You can grab some rebounds. You can get some assists. But you can usually tell by the way he's going up and down the court whether he's in a groove offensively or not. Because when he's in a groove offensively, he's tough. He had an all-star year and a couple of years ago, and he's put up good numbers, but just probably not that guy. I think Brunson's working his way to the number one. I don't think he's there yet solidly. I think he's very, very close to being, the all-time number one for them. But they probably need that. They need that solid 2 option. Someone like a Klay Thompson, someone like that they can get in and fit in. That can play two ends. That's what Barrett's supposed to be, but I'm not sold on Barrett long term. He's young, so I wouldn't give up on him yet, but I still think they need to bring in someone now. They're kind of stuck salary cap wise. Hart's probably the biggest name that they can keep, which is on their roster anyway, and it'll help their cap because he's with them already. But if they can get Towns somehow, it's like, well, you're going to lose a lot for it. I don't think they have the assets or the tools to bring back. They do have some picks though, I believe, so they can do something maybe to entice Minnesota to get some of the picks that they sold the farm for. They got rid of to Utah with Danny Ainge swindled them, but. Yeah, I mean, New York, look, considering where they've been the last 10 years, still a positive year, but I felt like they let one slip not getting through Miami. But what do you see? Do you think they hold pat? Do you think they try to move Randall, Barrett, both?
Well, the question with Randall is, who wants him and who's going to give you something for him? And I don't want to say he is not valuable. The guy averaged 25 and 10 on a playoff team. He could definitely help a team. The problem is, like, young teams wouldn't probably want to take him because they want to develop and go young and go forward with it. And then, the way he plays isn't for everybody, especially in today's age of game. And I think that, only specific teams, maybe a Washington, maybe a Charlotte, I don't see many other teams like, maybe a swap for Randall, for Towns, Randall for Towns, and then you got to give a little bit more. Who knows? But I don't know what you're going to get for him. Look, I think Brunson, the way I have Brunson rated, and I have him rated much better than I had him when he signed the deal. I have him as a non-elite first option. First option on a team, definitely could be a first option, but just not like an elite first option player, like a Dame Lillard or something like that. But he's real close to that. He's sort of in that.
He's close,
He's definitely close. So you got Jalen, right? And you got, I would keep Brunson. I like Robinson as a, rim protector or a lob threat. So I like him. I don't love him, but I like him. I think RJ, the problem with RJ is he shoots 31 from the three. He's got to be able to make shots consistently. He's a decent playmaker at a guard spot. He rebounds pretty well, and he's athletic and all that, but he needs to do more. I really like Hart. You got to keep him. I liked what I saw out of Toppin and Hartelstein, in the playoffs when they had to play some minutes. Yeah, they definitely got to upgrade. They don't really have a lot of room to deal with stuff. I think the Fournier experiment, they could have helped him a little bit, but they really shut down Fournier most of the year. And I think this is a good lesson not to watch any Olympic events during the summertime, because everybody gets, falls in love with those guys who are the unsung heroes in the Olympics. But I like Fournier. I think it helped, but they need shooting. Like, they need to be able to stretch the floor, because Brunson, when you don't have shooting and he's dribbling around trying to find a play to make, and you can't spread the floor out because you don't really have a consistent shooting, it's tougher for him to make, to really get going on what he needs to be doing consistently. So I think Randall, you're going to have to move. The question is, you're probably going to have to throw in some things just to get him off your books and to get him to somewhere. You're probably not going to get a lot in exchange for him. Barrett, you could probably get some things for. They're sort of in an influx. You could keep everybody together, but the problem is with the NBA, Bogues, and you know this, right? They were fifth in the East, right? 47-35. Like, how much better are they going to get? Like they're in that Brooklyn sort.
Together, you mean?
What's up?
If they stay together, you mean?
Yeah, if they stay together, like, how much better? Like you're not going to make a big jump.
They're missing a piece.
And you don't have these.
Yeah, they're missing one piece.
Yeah, you don't have these picks and things like that. You get some teams that are trying to make some moves. So I don't know what they're going to do, Bogues. They're sort of stuck. I like that team. They're tough. They're gritty. I really like Tibbs as a coach, and I think they do a good job. But they're very, very limited. And the problem is their trade pieces. You're not going to get anything great. You're going to keep Brunson. He's your number one option going forward, right? And then like everyone else is sort of could be traded. I like Hart. You got to keep him. And then you get some decent pieces, but nothing that anyone's going to be like, yeah, we're going to give you this great player for. So as you said, that number two option, it's going to be really hard to acquire. It's not like you could throw RJ and Randall in a trade. They're hard enough individually to get rid of. And if you combine them, they're impossible. So you got to figure out what you're going to get back and how you're going to do it. Are you going to tank it? You can't really tank. It's New York. They've been tanking the last decade anyway, without even trying to tank. They tanked. So it's not like that fan base ain't going to be able to do that. They could spend as much as they want. If they can go $3 billion over the salary cap, the fucking owner will just raise the price of cable 28 cents a month and pay for it. They're fine financially, but they don't really have a lot of flexibility to do a lot. So it'll be interesting what they do going forward. That front office is going to really have to evaluate some sleepers and diamonds in the rough to really bring in for low money, to be guys that are really hungry and trying to compete. They can make shots and sort of make their job easier. So it'll be an interesting sort of conversation.
It is. All right, Boston, Philly. That was this morning, early Australian time. I caught the second half, and Philly implode yet again. They steal game one without Embiid. They go down in game two, obviously. They take game four in overtime. It goes 2-2. They get game five with a home game six. And, some people say that they got a bad whistle. Well, whatever it is. That's the NBA. They go down in game six and just get absolutely pummeled today, 112-88. And people, it's probably a bit harsh, but people were saying to me, even online, you read Joe Mazzulla, inexperienced. I'm like, yeah, but the Doc Rivers factor is still there. Like, he struggles in tight series and tight games historically, right? We'll get into some of those stats a little bit later, but not great in game sevens. And this was one that I think we almost say the same thing every other year about Philly. You know, the Kawhi buzzer beater and the Atlanta series is always like, this is one thing you're going to think about for a long time until the next season when they do it again. It's just like, it's very cyclical for them. Like, they go through the same thing. Embiid was a shell of himself, I think, for the playoffs. I mean, he had a few good games early in the first round. I thought Maxey was a better player for them in the first round. And then Embiid's numbers 25, 9, and 2, 42% from the field, 20% from three. One thing I noticed with Embiid, he's a monster defensively, but when he's feeling good at the offensive end, he's a monster defensively. So he'll be, blocking shots, and he's active. And when he's getting the ball at the other end, everything's happy days. When he doesn't get a few touches, a few trips down, or he's missing shots, that defense kind of goes down a few notches. And they exposed him today in a lot of switches. They really attacked him. He wasn't as influential on the defensive end. Harden was hard in one game, and then, wasn't hard in the next. Maxey didn't have a great series, but still finished with 19-5. He's probably the most consistent producer throughout the playoffs, in my opinion. Tobias Harris was generally around his numbers, but they let one slip. And I got to give credit to Boston and Tatum. Horrendous shooting performance by Tatum in the first three quarters of game six, and he just comes out and, Big Kid Jones just doesn't care, and just makes huge shots in that game six late, and then comes out and puts up 50 plus today. So, yeah, I mean, I thought this would go 7 or 6 or 7. I think I picked it. I thought it'd go deep, but Philly letting one slip. And one thing we got to talk about, Pro, I'm Embiid. Look, MVP year, regular season, arguable for some people, for some not. But after every loss, he blames his teammates, bro. And it's every loss this series, if you watch the press conference post, it is his teammates' fault. So much so, we need more guys to show up after one game. Today it was, we need more than James and I to come to play. And it's just like, I think what embodies an MVP is, number one, you're the leader of the team. They go as far as you take them. Your attitude, your body language, your MO, how you handle the media, what you do off the court, are you doing stupid shit? For the most part, Embiid's pretty good with that. It doesn't get in trouble, but you can't throw your teammates under the bus consistently. Now, every now and then in the regular season, is there a time to light a firecracker? Yes, there is. There's a time where you're like, hey, we need more from our bench. They're struggling. We need to get more from them. We need this. Once in a while, you get it. Generally more left for the coach, though, right? But in this series, just this series of out of the 4 losses, 3 of them post-game, he blamed his teammates, bro. So they can do whatever they want, but the scuttle's going to be around the league. Do you want to go play with a guy that's going to throw you under the bus? Do you want to go, playing a team that's going to falter under pressure and then you're going to get the blame? That stuff travels in NBA circles. So I think, and like I said, Boston snatched it. They snatched it. They stole this series, in my opinion. This was Philly's to win, but end of the day, Philly are going home and Boston go to the next round, bro.
Yeah, Bogues. I mean, look, Boston, a lot of credit because it wasn't looking good. It was not looking good for them for a while. And there's some talk, there was some scuttlebutt and talk about, possibly a coaching change if they lost, especially in game 7, if they lost 3 home games. And I think that's sort of bullshit. You sort of have a coach, the inexperienced thing, I get it. I don't care how good you are, you're going to deal with some growing pains in the playoffs. And some things that you can do better. Look, all young coaches could do that. But hey, a lot of credit to that team to stick it in. They were dead to rights, in game 6, and they really persevered. And, Tatum really had a tough night and sort of finished it great. But that's just sort of a great testament to that team and just sort of staying in it. The whole Philly thing, look, every roster, Bogues, every roster in this league is a little bit, it's not a perfect roster. There's going to be holes in it. It can't be perfect, especially when you have multiple franchise players or max players on your team. You're going to have to give up some things. You're going to have to give up depth. You're going to have to give up some talent. look, we were talking about Phoenix a few minutes ago about what they had to do and give up to get Durant. It does cost, but you can't throw your teammates under the bus. And this is the fucked up thing about the NBA. You basically stand up there like you're bulletproof and like, well, it just can't be me and James. Well, hey, you shot 5 for 18. James shot 3 for 11. So, yeah, I get it. You guys are great players for your careers and Hall of Fame talents. I get that. But look, teams, players are going to have off nights. And I'll tell you what, Tyrese Maxey played a great series. 20 plus points a game. I think he shot over 40% from three. Tobias, Harris, he
was 35 from three, and 40 from the field this series.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Maxey.
Maxey, yep.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even gonna do the dick move and tell the sound guy to fucking edit that out. I'm gonna roll with that. I fucked those numbers up. I apologize. But look, I thought he had some good scoring nights. I thought he played well. Look, it's not a perfect roster, but you're right. There are times where you have to throw your team under the bus, especially throughout the season. Maybe after a playoff game when you're still in the series, but when it's over and it's done, take the high road. Take the high road. Look,
especially as the MVP, man.
Doubt.
You're the MVP of the league. Like you chase the MVP. They helped you get it. And then all of a sudden you can't just blame your teammates whenever shit doesn't go right. No. And then if you win the chip, you're like, yeah, I did it. That doesn't work that way. And I think that's not a great look for Embiid, in my opinion. Everyone handles these things differently, but you just don't see, you don't see Steph doing that. You don't see Jokic doing that. You don't see these guys doing that. Even KD, as much shit as he gets, you don't see him throwing his teammates under the bus. You just don't. Go back and read his comments about Ben Simmons when he was there. He did his best not to throw him under the bus, and he could have. He had every excuse to throw him under the bus, right? So you have to do that as a leader. Like you can't just straight away blame. And it's to your point earlier about guys wanting to do media when they win and not wanting to do it when they lose. You can't do that. So I think Philly, they got a lot of learning to do from this, and Embiid's the MVP and whatnot. But you can't. I can't buy into that. If you're one of those guys that's going to just blame your teammates straight away, like you said, not a great series for an MVP. 25-9 at bad clips, especially when you needed a score late in those games. The other one was, I guess, was game six. Game 6, they didn't get me the ball the last 4 minutes. Well, it's like, well, go tell your coach or your captain or have a huddle on the floor. Say something. Hey, give me a touch on this spot. Like, I just don't see that out of Philly, which is disappointing. But where do they go, bro? They have James Harden has a option from people are saying he wants to go back to Houston. That's a scuttlebutt around the league, so he'll be most likely be gone. Joel Embiid's locked up for the long term. Tobias Harris is their highest paid player as of now, which is this season. Next season he moves to $39 million and then becomes a free agent. Embiid's locked up to 26-27 with an option that last year. Melton I thought was solid in glimpses. I think they can polish something out of him. PJ Tucker, another $11 million next season, and then an option, heavy decline for him, especially offensively. Made some big plays for him a little bit with that offensive rebound and whatnot, but what they do with him, and then Maxey's obviously their best value player. He's on his rookie deal still, right? So $4 million next year and then $6 million. Be interesting to see if they try to keep him long term. I assume they will lock him up long term with James probably walking away, and then they have a little bit of cap space to spend to see what they do with that, to try and get someone there. They're 15th right now in salary spend. They will go up a little bit next season, but obviously with James falling off the books, they have a lot of money to spend, and then the following season they drop from 160 to 60, so they have $100 million in their pocket to spend. So some of that will go to Maxey, of course. But what do you see the move is for them to try and get that conference finals?
Well, Daryl Morey owes his whole career to James Harden, and he's got a non-sexual crush on him as far as having him with him, and I think he's going to do everything in his power to keep him. And I think the move for them, and I think look for this to happen, one of these two moves to happen. You got to attach Tobias Harris with Maxey, and you have to deal him for Dame Lillard, or you have to deal him for Kyrie Irving to add, now again, you're going to deal with the same stuff that a lot of these other teams do when they give up a lot of assets for one player. I think the only two moves they could make, I don't think you could just lose James Harden and then, fill him in with some cap space. Cap space is the most overrated thing in the history of mankind. If I'm a free agent and you're losing James Harden, I'm not going to Philly. I'm looking at that roster and being like, you got Tobias Harris that I wouldn't say Tobias is in decline, but he's okay. You got Embiid and you got Maxey. Like, okay, like where are we going? It's a cold weather town. No one really likes living there. And, where are they going? So if I'm Daryl Morey, and him and Harden have a decent relationship, and I'll give Daryl this: he is not afraid to go swing for the fences. He's probably one of the best in the league at like doing these like last second moves to like go for the big dog. Look, he did it to get Carmelo. He did it for Chris Paul. He did it for Westbrook. He almost got Gasol one year. He made the Chris Paul trade to get, I think he was a third team in that trade. Like, he's not afraid to try to make a deal. And I think that, look, Dame Lillard would be good for them because, look, if I'm Portland and look, you want picks and things, but you could either go picks or get a young player. I don't think Maxey is a level player like Lillard, but I'll tell you what, he's in that Brunson mode of like borderline elite player. So like, why not take a young player still on his rookie deal? You maybe take a pick or two or three or whatever you can scrounge up, whatever they have. You get Tobias Harris as a throw-in, but you get this really good young player. And then Dame Lillard, you get to save him and send him to a team that might have a chance to compete for an Eastern Conference Finals. Now, if that doesn't work, and you're going to have to go for option B, you got to try to maybe go for broke. I don't know if Kyrie and Harden get along. I don't know, and I don't care. But I'm just saying, like, if I'm Philly, I'm just not letting Harden walk and then going with Maxey and then the rest of my roster. It's just not good enough. So you're going to have to make a move to either get a Bradley Beal, a Dame Lillard, a Kyrie Irving. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to see if I can get Jay Crowder, bring him in to be the replacement at some point for PJ Tucker, because I don't think PJ really has it at that level. Look, Crowder didn't finish the year great, but I think that not playing most of the year really messed him up. And I think that Jay Crowder could be a 32-year-old version of Tucker, who's 37, a little banged up. Look, he's a warrior. He's very good, but you need somebody with a little bit more offense, with that defensive tenacity and that toughness that PJ brings. And I just don't think that he can really do that for 82 games plus playoffs anymore. I think Jay Crowder could, because he is younger, and he's battle tested as well. So I think those are the things that I'm doing. I'm fighting James Harden leaving. Look, I'm not a big James Harden fan. I haven't been in a long time, but I think for that roster, Bogues, because then if Harden leaves and now you're first round and out, or maybe second round and out again, then Embiid wants to leave. And now you're really screwed. And I think that you got to make that last ditch effort to bring in a veteran, a really good high-level player to play with those guys. And I think that those are your three top options. I think it has to be a guard. I think it has to be someone who could score. And I think it just spreads you out now. Now Harden could be more of a distributor and have Lillard or a Bradley Beal or a Kyrie Irving, in your lineup that could be a potent offensive threat. That's what I would do.
Well, James is eligible for a 4-year max, $210 million.
Yeah.
The over 38 rule complicates adding a fifth year, which would be worth $62 million. So, Houston Rockets, for instance, can offer him up to 201. So he'd only make a little bit more if he stayed with Philly. But as you noted, they can't let Harden walk for nothing because they gave up a lot to get him, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they don't project to be a lot of cap space if he leaves, so they won't be able to replace him in free agency adequately, like for like. So they are kind of stuck into keeping him, which is interesting. All right, moving on. Let's give our tips for next round. Denver, LA, who you got?
I think I'm like 8% picking playoffs in my career. I'm going to go with Denver, which means LA is going to sweep, but I'm going to go with Denver.
What do you got?
I'll go 4-2.
Yeah, I'm going to go Denver 4-3. I think it's going to be a great series. I think Jokic hasn't been attacked defensively one-on-one in the last two series.
Oh, I thought you meant
had
by
Gobert, who's
Perkins attacked him. I thought you were talking about,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Physically, yes. Yeah, physically with a knife or a gun. But I just think AD will pose some problems for Jokic. Jokic guarded Gobert in the first round, lob guy, easy to guard, not going to go at you one-on-one. Aiden, kind of similar, not really a guy they're going to ISO. AD is going to get his touches to go at Jokic, and they're going to try to get him in foul trouble. So that's the difference, and that's going to play a part. We'll see if Jokic can stay out of foul trouble. He can sometimes get into foul trouble, and he has had a history of that against bigs that attack him. So we'll see how that goes. But I think for all the shit Jokic gets defensively, I thought he was very good in the Phoenix series. Just studying him a little bit. He's not going to block shots. He's not over athletic, but he's not a poor defender. I think he's a pretty average defender because of his IQ and knows where to get to on the floor. So I'm looking forward to that series. Who guards LeBron? I think Gordon's going to start on him. They need to keep Gordon out of foul trouble as well, because I think the next option to then guard, I think you got Jeff Green sitting on the bench, but Jeff only plays 10 or 15 a night. You don't want Porter Jr. or KCP on that matchup for stretches. Definitely not. So they need to be careful there. But yeah, I'll go 4-3 on that one. Miami, Boston. Where are you at on that one?
I'll go Boston 4-2.
4-2. Yeah, I'm going 4. I'll go 4-1 just to go opposite. You had 4-1 or 4-2. No, actually, I'm going 4-2 because I think Boston sometimes will they'll let a game or two go. A la the Atlanta series. They'll just coast through and kind of sleepwalk through it and be like, we're going back to Boston, we'll win. So I'm going to go 4-2 as well with this one. I think Miami will grind out a win below or around about the 100 mark, I think. That's what I'm thinking. They'll have a grind out win that Jimmy just pushes them to not lose. And I think their guards, like I said, they have some guards on that Miami Heat team that are grindy, physical, that can match up well. They're lacking a bit of size, but they play hard. It'll be interesting also to see if Tyler Hero can make his way back. I think we're in the 4th week of a 4 to 6 week injury. So he could come back mid-series, maybe help them a little bit. Don't think it moves the needle. All right, news. Ja Morant, bro. Ja Morant. Oh, my goodness. It's good to see the counselling did him wonders. He lasted, a month?
3 hours.
No, they've been knocked out of the playoffs for 2 weeks. I mean, since his counselling, that was probably a month ago or 2 months ago. But what are you doing, dude? Like, I know he's a grown man, but his father, sits courtside, and he's a great parent, and he's supporting. Get your son, man. Like, I know he's a adult, but help this guy out, man. Like, on top of that, you got a friend that's in your car recording you. How good of a friend is he? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Especially considering how much money it's cost him. Cost his team probably I don't know if they still beat the Lakers without that distraction, but it sure as shit didn't help them, having him miss games and their flow was all messed up. But man, like I think we were both in agreement that when he screwed it up, take your medicine and we're going to forgive you. The American public, for the most part, Australia a little bit different, tall poppy here, but the public are generally going to forgive you if you put it behind you. What's unforgivable to me now is you do the same thing again a month later. I don't know what the NBA does here. Adam Silver's a very pro player and soft on these things. There's people talking about the year. Chandler Parsons tweeted it. A few people have mentioned, like, you need to give this guy a year and be like, dude, you cannot do what you are doing. You are, unfortunately, Charles Barkley, you are a role model in the city of Memphis. Many kids look up to you. They see, a superstar basketball player at the top of his game, wielding a gun around. What do you think those young kids are going to do that are wearing his jersey? It's a bad look for everyone. It's a bad look for the league. The league wants to have all these, meetings about, don't do this and be careful of this. And now you've got one of your superstars doing this. This is very, very, very costly for his career. And I can't say now that I'm confident that he can rehab and come back. I mean, just absolutely bonkers, pro. What are your thoughts on it? And what kind of suspension would you give him?
Well, I wasn't confident that he was going to get better. I thought he should have missed the rest of the playoffs. I think that Adam Silver was completely soft on him in allowing him to play in the playoffs. I think it's time for Adam Silver to take his league back. I think it's a disgrace to the Shield. It's a disgrace to the logo that what this guy is doing. And I think that with all what's happened in this world with guns, I think you have to take a hard stance. Anything shorter than a year, anything to me, I'd lose respect. This guy just laughed in your face. You gave him a deal of all deals to let this guy play in the playoffs, which you should have never done. And I think that you want to send a message and hold the line of like, guns are not good for our league. We have to protect the integrity of the league. We can't have young men, that are role models if they like it or not. We talk about all these, senseless gun deaths, and we blame politics on one side or the other. But how about now taking a stance and having your language in your CBA or in your force this one through, where it's a year suspension caught with a gun, doing something like that, year suspension. Now look, the Players Association would fight you, and I'm going harder than hard against the Players Association. Tell them to fuck off. This is not right for the league. It's not good, especially when you gave him a chance. I would go a minimum of 42 game suspension on the first offense. In a season, second and third lifetime ban.
So you're saying a season now,
but for him,
now, right?
Because it's a second offense, I would go a season. Now, the least I'm gonna go, and if I'm gonna kick back money in an arbitration, I'm gonna go 70 games. I'm going to go 70 games minimum, which is basically just throw them out the whole year. But I would go a year. But I am going to push this through to the Players Association. And if you do have to give back a half a year with him, I would then say, okay, I'll give you back the half year and let him play after All-Star break. But this is what's going to happen. We're going to have a league-wide, first offense, half season, second offense, season, third offense, like the drug deal, lifetime ban, because this is the nonsense. This is fucking nonsense. And the commissioner has to step up on this one. He can't be like, he can't be kumbaya with these guys anymore. These are professionals. They get paid a lot of fucking money to represent the NBA. And most of them are law abiding. They, you don't hear boo from them. They do their thing and they go home, and they're going to be forgotten. See, to me, Ja Morant is very replaceable in the NBA. Very replaceable. He's a great talent, no doubt about it. But the league's going to go on without him, and that's what he's going to understand. Allen Iverson thought the league was going to go just stop short when he was gone. And yeah, they remember him a little bit, no doubt about it. But the league goes on. There's superstars going through the pike every year. And there's about 5 players, and he's not one of them, that are totally non-replaceable. And those are the 5 MVP candidates. And you have to show that, look, this is not going to be tolerated. This is not going to be a slap in the wrist. This is what it is. And you're going to have to put in some gun laws in your league. Yes, what he did was not illegal. Waving a gun around, if you got illegal, if you got a license and all that stuff, he didn't do any crime. I get it. But it's not good for the league. You've got $1 billion TV contracts. You got people selling out every night. You got this great product that you're trying to produce to the league, and you have this guy just completely shitting down your throat with this stuff and waving it in your face and laughing like it's a fucking joke.
Now, if you're at a gun range and someone snaps a photo of you, or you snap a photo and that's your hobby, just no problem whatsoever in my book. But
no.
You're driving down a street with your friends in your car, just flaunting that you've got a pistol with you. Now, I don't know the circumstances. I don't know what I think Tennessee's pretty strict from what I believe, or Memphis at least is pretty strict on carries. I don't know. I'd have to look up what the concealed carries are and all the laws around that, but just stupid, and you hate to see it. This is addict type behavior with a gun, right? Like it's like, someone needs to help him because he obviously can't help himself, but the league's going to have to address that. Not holding my breath. It'll be surely Adam Silver's reading the room at this point and just saying, look, this kid's got an issue. We need to figure this out. We need to punish him heavily and get on with life. But I won't hold my breath on that one. All right. We found out who the one vote was, Pro, that did not vote for Jokic in their top 5. And it was my good friend, Mark Jackson.
Nice.
Who is now interviewing for the Milwaukee Bucks. I think that's just a formality from what I hear. It's, I don't think he's going to get that one, but it would be good to see him coach again because we'll see how that all goes. But the excuse that he gave, Pro, has been called out as well. He said that he voted the MVP like an All-NBA ballot. Guard, forward, center. Mm-hmm. And had him beat as a center. Oh, didn't have him in my top 5. So, oops, sorry. But then someone noted he didn't have one of those top 5 in his All-NBA votes.
Yeah.
So a blatant lie.
Shocker.
I don't think this was indiscretion. I think he, for whatever reason he had, you can up to your own assumptions. You didn't want to have Jokic in the top 5 now. But at least he put somewhat of a statement out. But I don't buy the lie of I just thought it was an All-NBA team. If you thought that, you should not be getting a vote, and it probably does hurt your coaching chances if you can't figure out how to vote on MVP ballot that you've been doing for what? How long has he been in the media, Pro? 15 years now. Oops, just forgot that that's not how you vote. Well, oops, forgot to draw up a game-winning play. That's what teams are probably looking at right now. But I won't let you get too much into that one. One thing I got, Pro, NBA needs to do something about flopping. They got to do something about flopping. And I put a post out after the Warriors series. Everyone thought it was a pro Warriors tweet. It wasn't. It was. They got to do something about it, man. From both, every team does it. It's just a matter of how many players they have that have looked at. Lakers have a few guys that do tend to flop. That's the honest truth. Warriors have some. Philly has some, but everyone's got floppers, right? Guys that can accentuate contact and go. But the blatant ones that some of the players have been getting these playoffs, not just in the Warriors series, have been bad. Embiid does it. Schroeder does it. You know, I don't think it's good for basketball. And I want to see him go the FIBA route. I think the FIBA route is great. The FIBA route gives you one warning. So anyone on your team flops, bro, you got to tell your coach, your team has an official warning for flopping. This is the harsh part. Whoever flops next gets the technical foul, right? That's the harsh part. And I've seen players that have had a technical foul flop in the 4th and get a second tech and get ejected. Mm-hmm. And that's how harsh they have to go. It needs to cost teams games. You can't continue to reward this behavior. And it's just so bad, especially offensive players just falling over, you know, trying to dribble into chests and just falling backwards and all that kind of stuff. You know, slightest move on a screen, guys are falling over, or slightest the screener gets touched, they fall over. It's not good viewing, Pro. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure something out. And the problem is that you're going to have to stop the game constantly to figure out if it's a flop or not, if you just sort of missed it because it's not blatant. So I wouldn't allow replay,
Pro. I wouldn't allow replay because in replay, when you slow things up, you can have them fit whatever narrative you want, as we know with replays. It's like sometimes when they review fouls, you can find a foul in slow-mo. You know what I mean? That's what kills me.
These refs can't call a fucking proper travel. How are they going to especially how good players are at flopping at either way, offense and defense. So it's like, it's going to slow the game down, but I agree with you. I don't know. I don't know what you do to do it, but.
Where's the flop fine gone? Where has that gone?
Yeah, that's gone. That's out the window.
Is that? But it hasn't officially gone, right? It's still a rule, but where has it gone?
Yeah, come on. Seriously.
Remember the first year they introduced it? There was like 40 players the first month of the season that were just, there was like NBA release, player X fined for flopping, NBA release. Where's that gone?
What's more believable, that they actually going to have a flopping fine, or that OJ is really going to try to find the real killer of his wife? Give me a fucking break, Bogues. Come on.
They got to do something though. Yeah. It was, I don't know. I just felt like it was too much in these playoffs, and you hate to see games and plays dictated by guys just taking, you know, they should be in the diving championships and jumping off platforms at times. No. You know, like, look, if you're taking a charge against a big guy and you accentuate it, I get it. That's fine. I'm not too stressed about that. It's the dribbling and someone's got an arm bar and I flail and I fall over, and then you literally fall on the ground. So now the ref's like, shit, it's either a turnover or I got to call a foul, and then it puts them in a tough spot. They just need to, even if they're sometimes wrong that it's not a flop, it'll give the warning and guys will stop doing it. But I said, with Adam Silver and the way the league's refereed, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it needs to, because it's becoming a blight on the TV viewer, Pro. Final one, Phil Jackson, great quotable, Pro. Great quotable from him. He got in trouble a couple of weeks ago for saying that he didn't buy into the whole BLM bubble time in the NBA where they had slogans on the court, and he thought it hurt hurt fans because it split fans in half and blah, blah, blah. But since then he said, I don't think people got the humor, the names on the back of the players that were in the bubble, because if you apply them to defending and challenging going to the hoop on their names, it had a funny aspect to it. Visually, this was kind of humorous. So what he meant by that was a lot of players had freedom in different languages, all those kind of words. And he's equated that to the way they play defense in 2020. What was that, 21? I just thought it was an interesting, funny quotable by Phil Jackson, Pro.
Yeah, the first time I thought he had a point with the social justice thing. The second thing, there's a line that you probably shouldn't cross regardless if you think you're right or wrong. Obviously, social justice thing is a very sensitive topic to a lot of people, especially in the NBA. To me, I don't know. I think that's just Phil just, wanting a fucking, wanting a second act on that whole thing and just sort of, punching his sort of feelings of it through with a little bit of a joke and humor. I don't know. I was sort of to that whole thing. The first time, I think he was right with the whole the BLM thing and the bubble and all that stuff. But the names at the back of the jersey, come on, I don't know. I thought that was sort of like a scripted bullshit thing. He just wanted to fucking bust some people's balls by throwing that out there. So I didn't really have a.
The second one was a joke. The second one was more of a joke though, but the first one was dead serious.
No doubt about it. And I was all for the first thing that he said. Second thing, I didn't really. I mean, this is the first I'm really hearing about it. I think maybe I read something about it, but yeah. The guy's a regular Joe Rogan. Let me tell you.
Interesting nonetheless. All right. Dabble, the social betting experience. We can jump to the banner channels, connect with the Dabble community, and ride a bet together. Follow, copy bets, and jump in a banner. Download the app, have a dabble. Go to the App Store, dabble, all one word, dabble socially, and gamble responsibly. Has to be responsible. We always say that. We're a very responsible podcast. Everything needs to be done responsibly. All right, Australia NBL World Cup squads. I'm going to endeavour to pick my squad, Pro, and note my cuts. This is a very, very tough thing to do. But my starting lineup for the World Cup, I've got Josh Giddey at the 1, Paddy Mills at the 2, interchangeable, obviously. But my point would be Giddey for offensive purposes. I'd have Ingles at the 3, Thibault at the 4, and Landale at the 5. So similar to what they had last time around, albeit Giddey's now involved. Bench, Green makes it for me. Xavier Cooks makes it in the forward spot. Nick Kay makes it in a forward center spot. Reith makes it as the backup center, so 11-12. I've got Jack White as a leading collusion. I think his work and his three-point shot has gotten much better, and they're going to need that from a 4-5. This is where it gets interesting. I've got it down to Dante Exum or Delhi for another guard spot on the bench. I've got to give it to Dante with his form in Europe. And then I've got Chris Golding and Dyson Daniels. That's the big coin flip for me, Pro. So I think that's going to sway with what the coaches feel like they want. Do they want more shooting, which they're probably going to need in FIBA ball, or do they want much more lockdown defense in Dyson Daniels? I think Dyson might be a little bit unlucky. I think Josh Green is a very good defender, but he has that 3-ball that's gotten better. That gets him in over those two. But I think the CG43 and Dyson Daniels is going to be the coin flip, and obviously Dante Exum and Daly. So that would leave the cuts, if let's say the 4 cuts that I think are certain, Keanu Pinder, Will McDowell White, Thon Maker, and Sam Froling. I think those 4 will be cut. I think it leaves Dyson Daniels and Dellavedova out. I'm going to say they're going to go with Chris Golding just because they need the shooting. I think they need the shooting off the bench, Pro. But yeah, so my squad then will be Giddey, Mills, Ingles, Thibault, Landale, Green, Exum, CG43, Xavier Cooks, Nick Kay, Reith, and Jack White would be the last man on the roster, Pro. So that goes with that. I don't know if you saw the Dante Exum scuffle series. Real Madrid came back from a 0-2 deficit to beat Partizan. It's the first team ever in EuroLeague history to come back from a 0-2 deficit. So the brawl worked in the favor of the Brawlers, Pro.
Well, Bogues, I'm just happy that you're having Exum on the team, considering last week you had him out till 2040 with that injury, so he wasn't going to be eligible for the
fooled us.
Until the
pump fake of the year,
the 2040 fucking Olympics.
Come on, dude, he left the arena on crutches. Hell of a pump fake.
Bogues,
hell, good showmanship.
If we're gonna have a flop fine, you're not gonna be the guy in charge of fucking deciding if it's a flop or not, because they can give you the okey doke like he did. So you're out of that.
Maybe so. That's why I don't ref. That's why I just better off on the sidelines telling them how to ref than actually refing.
No.
It's a hard job though. All right, useful or useless. Under the new CBA agreement, Pro, these players would have not made all NBA teams this season. Jimmy Butler, Giannis, Dame, Steph, and LeBron. Useful or useless. That's due to the 65-game minimum, Pro, of course. Those guys did not hit 65. So if that happens next season, they do not make the All-NBA.
It's useful. And is there any rumor to the fact that now Ja, because, he didn't make the all-defensive team, didn't make all-NBA, or didn't win MVP, yet he got caught for the second time with a gun. Is he eligible for a Supermax now?
I said he was in the all-shooting team, I think.
I got it. That is useful. I think that is useful. They shouldn't, and I don't think any of those guys should have been eligible, for the amount of games they missed. I'm not a big fan of missing all these games, but
a few missed one. I think Jimmy missed by one,
yeah.
But yeah, it is 65, so they won't make it. I think it's useful of a rule and useful stat to put out there just to show that in the future, these guys won't be all-NBA. So I guess we're going to see a lot of players next season, Pro, in the 65 to 68 range for games played. Yeah. That's just a hunch I have. Little birdie told me. All right, every NBA head coach with the best record the last 6 seasons is no longer with that team. Useful or useless?
Useful, and I'll give some future NBA coaches some advice. Don't win a championship. Tell the
don't win too soon.
Yeah, don't win a championship. If they're going to give you a coach of the year, tell them to fuck off. You're not winning it. And lose in the first round every year, and have a GM that every 3 years they're going to rebuild and just trade all your assets away for draft picks. That's how you keep your job in the NBA as a head coach.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I made that same joke today to someone. It's like you're better off being you're honestly better off being 6 to 12.
Yes. You don't want to not make the playoffs. You don't want to win the playoffs because obviously that's not really good for people. You want to win a round or lose in the first round. Maybe win a round. Just win the first round. And that's it. You'll keep your job for a while. But don't go lottery all the time because you probably won't keep it there. Or don't win it. But win a round. That's my advice.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, yeah. I mean, it just shows how impatient the league has become and pro sports have become. It's like there's so much delusion. We talk about it with players, with GMs and owners too. Yeah. It's like you've had the squad together for 18 months. You want to blow it up already. You want a new coach already. You want like sometimes, historically there's been some teams. The Warriors are a prime example. It took 3, 4, 5 years of being together and making small tweaks, and then bang. I'm surprised more people don't follow that blueprint, albeit not including the KD era because they obviously bought a star, but they put themselves in a position to get that star, right?
Yes.
No one's that patient anymore. Everyone wants to go, if we're not in the finals, it's a bust. It's like, well, you can't all win. You can't all win every season.
And also, if you see your owner sitting with Isaiah Thomas, just fucking resign because you got no fucking chance of keeping your job.
Phoenix Suns.
There's no chance that fucking Isaiah Thomas wasn't. Look, Monty Williams, 2 epic blowups in the last 2. So yeah, he should have been under scrutiny for sure. But you don't think since he took over, Isaiah Thomas has been in that guy's ear? You're telling me that Isaiah Thomas wasn't killing him from fucking day one just to get in with that owner I don't know if he wants to be the coach, but he definitely wants power there. And you're telling me that he had nothing to do, that owner just automatically just said Monty Williams is out because he got blown out a couple of games? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I have no idea. But I just thought it seems a little funny to me.
Yeah. Not good for Phoenix.
No.
I don't know how Isaiah ended up in Phoenix in the first place. But anyway. All right. Game 7 losses, Pro. Doc Rivers has 10. The Bucks, Celtics, and Hawks have 9. There's only one team that has more losses in Game 7s than Doc Rivers. And that is who?
I think I read this today.
It's the 76ers, bro.
Okay, Sixers. Got it.
Yeah. But Doc has more Game 7 losses than numerous teams. Useful, useless?
I say it's useful, of course. I mean, that's a lot of Game 7s to lose. It's a lot of Game 7s to lose. It's unfortunate, especially he had a lot of good teams. But, yeah, it's pretty useful.
Yeah, useful, tough for Doc. I mean, he got most of his wins too are with that Celtic team with KG and that. So he does tend to struggle just over the course of playoff series, and many times has been up, 2-1, 3-1, and just doesn't manage to get it done. All right, the last MVP to win a championship in the same season is who, bro?
Probably Steph.
It is Steph, 2015. So it doesn't happen often. It does not happen often. There is a chance it happens this season. 4 teams left. Jokic MVP. No, sorry. It can't happen this season. Yeah. Back to back, though. Back to back. But, yep, there goes another one. Embiid is out in straight sets to the Boston Celtics, and another MVP cannot win the championship.
Well, actually, Mark Jackson voted for Peyton Pritchard over fucking Jokic, so he's got a chance in his MVP vote. Fucking idiot.
Yeah, he voted for Reggie Miller. Yeah. All right, Q&As real quick. This is from Instagram, Harrison McInnery. This is for me, pro.
Go ahead.
Who was the hardest big man you played in the NBA/FIBA? For me, it was Yao Ming. In his prime before the injuries, was an absolute low down there on the block. Very nice touch. Like guard touch. I've told this story numerous times, but a few times he got hot when we played Houston when I was with the Bucks, and there was nothing I could do. He was just shooting straight over me. Other one I had problems with early in my career was Dwight Howard. Prime Dwight Howard in Orlando for me was tough. Very, very strong, very athletic. Stan ran some very good stuff for him, so those two guys gave me fits. Dwight, I kind of got the talent of my career and I flipped it. I played really well against him. So I figured him out, got a bit more strength, but Yao was one I just couldn't figure out. No matter what you did, you'd push him off the block, you'd front him, you'd be physical, and you just turn. He's 7'6" and he's shooting above his head. He's shooting at an 8-foot range, and like, what's my contest going to do, bro? Like tickle his chin, So he was a tough one. Facebook, David Grill. Is this hate for Julius Randle in New York City really warranted? Pro, I'll let you go on this one.
I think so. Because when you're paid that much money, your effort level and your give a fuck level has to be, look, you're not, as we saw in the playoffs, some great players really didn't produce in their last games, in their last series to get eliminated, right? But like their effort was all there, all in. And I felt as though that his effort really wasn't there on both ends of the floor. And I think that he checks out for long periods of time. And look, you're in New York. New York is the toughest place in the NBA to play for fan base and going nuts when you don't produce, and especially when they lose, even though they overachieved at the end of the year. So I think that when you're making that much money in New York, that you have to bring it every night, and they will get behind you. They'll get on you, but your effort level has to be there. If they sniff out that you're not giving 1,000%, even if you have an off night, they're going to kill you anyway. But like if they sniff out that you're not bringing it 100%, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I think it just comes down to body language for him. A lot of it is just, even if you're having a shitty game, don't show it. I think he gets very emotional sometimes. He's harder on himself probably than most people are, but when you don't give full effort because you're not making your shots, which clearly sometimes happens on the defensive end for Julius, I think, people get frustrated. And I think that, there's always going to be a scapegoat. Like we just said, even if you lose in the finals, there's going to be someone that's going after you because you lost in the finals, right? And I think he needs to clean that up. And I think a lot of it's between years. So just toning back the body language, stay engaged. If you have a game that, you're 4 for 16 from the field, go grab me 20 rebounds. Go lock up their best power forward. I think that's what Julius can. He has the athletic skill set to do that. It's just a matter of, does he want to do it? So I think that the hate somewhat is warranted. The extremes of Stephen A. Smith calling for his head, probably not those extremes, but I think they will be looking to move Julius and probably try to partner Brunson if they can with somebody else. All right, last one, Twitter. You played during the height of the Tim Donaghy scandal. Were there games that you played where he officiated, and did you have any suspicious moments or calls in a game from him? What was your reaction at the time when that report came out? I can't specifically remember any circumstances. Look, to be honest with you, we weren't playing in a lot of high, worth games with Milwaukee. But you do try to circle back, and I can't. There were so many games, to look back and try to remember one specific moment. But I'm sure, if he was part of giving tips and whatnot, if you'd say human nature says he's influenced certain calls. Do they directly affect me or a teammate? Probably, but it is what it is, and you'd be silly to think that there's not one official somewhere in the world, in EuroLeague, in the NBA, in college, that's not giving information to sports bettors. Some of these officials, in college, they're not making top dollar, like a couple of $100,000 maybe, if that, if they're full-time referees. Bookie comes and says, here's another $500K for the year. I need a tip a week. Someone's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have an alcohol problem. Someone could have a gambling problem already. Their house is about to be foreclosed because of a bad investment. I don't know. But there's a circumstance where human nature comes into play. There's more referees in sports out there that are on the take. It's just, you'd be silly to say, oh no, every sport's clean. It's not. Maybe we find out about it, maybe we don't. But I don't think I was directly affected by it. But you look at that Spurs Sun series is the big one that sticks out. There were some dubious calls there, and it's just an unfortunate stain on the NBA's history, pro. Have you been involved in any, really? You came in just after that, right?
Yeah, I was working for Tim Grover at the time, and I remember I was talking to Adrian Wojnarowski, and he goes, hey, did you hear anything about this? I didn't even know who Tim Donaghy was, because I didn't know the referees like that. And they're like, dude, I have no fucking idea. And, he was telling me, I'm like, this can't be true, right? And he goes, nah, man, I'm hearing this. And, I don't know who broke the story or whatever, but it was a wild deal. And I just never thought, because I just thought there was so many moving parts to the whole thing that it would be really hard for somebody to really do it alone. But it was an interesting deal. No, I never really, besides reading about it when it broke. Yeah, I was in Chicago. I was out of the NBA by then, before I joined the Mavericks a few years later. But yeah, I had no idea. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. And I've watched a documentary on Netflix, which was more pro kind of Donaghy, which wasn't a bad one to watch to get both sides of perspective, but I doubt we'll ever get the full truth on that one. You got anything for us? Fact or fake news this week?
Nah, Bogues, we got to get out of here. They're going to start fining us for being so late. So no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll save it. I'll save it for next week.
Save it for next time. All right. Thanks, everyone. Rogue Bogues, Hoop Consultants. We'll see you next week.
Later, guys.
Let's get Rogue.